So, the Shadow of Skeletor. Okay, this is that episode where the Doombuster appeared for the first time. As well, it's the episode where Ramman and Many-Faces have a falling out, but they make up afterwards when Manny gets into trouble and Ramman helps to save him. So basically, Manny is rehearsing a play, which is Beauty and the Beast, with Teela. And Rammy actually confuses him for a real monster, and accidentally wrecks the stage, starting their feud for this episode. Next, the Doombuster appears, Seaman becomes a mini tornado and nabs it, and of course, Beastman happens to be inside, so they capture him. Skeletor then calls the ship. Manny pretends to be Beastman, and the heroes cook up a scheme for Manny to dress up as Beastman to find out what the villains are up to. As it turns out, their plan is to start a war between the peoples of the Dark Moon and Bright Moon of Eternia. Now, if all of this sounds pretty standard for He-Man, it sort of is, but this is the start of He-Man episode which really starts to annoy me when you start to think about the premise and the story details for longer than 5 seconds. Now, firstly, there's the Doombuster. I've mentioned in the Rainbow Warrior Timeline Conundrum video that this is one of those really weird Season 2 episodes where a vehicle is suddenly introduced, yet the Doombuster was mentioned for the first time at the start of Season 1. What's weird is how the heroes have no idea that the Doombuster is Skeletor's plane. Like, seriously, they have no clue. And it's extra weird because this episode has Manny and Whiplash in it, decisively making it a Season 2 episode. They could have honestly made my head hurt even more if they'd included Cyclone, but luckily He-Man decided to demonstrate at the start why he's a completely useless ally. Secondly, there's the whole aspect of this episode involving the Two Moons of Eternia. So, what about Phantos? Where the heck did these extra moons come from? I get it that this is supposed to be a whole commentary on the lack of trust among people, causing needless conflict because the Bright Mooners are trying to help the Dark Mooners, but I seriously have a hard time wrapping my lore brain around this whole thing. Yes, I know, they went to Phantos in No Job Too Small and it didn't look anything like the Phantos from the She-Demon episode, but seriously, it also bothers me a lot that the leader of the Bright Moon is basically just a recolor of the old dude from the Song of Solace. And then there's the whole conflict between Manny and Rammy. I mean, this is literally the first episode where they interact with each other, but somehow this show is implying like they're pals, and that this is just a sudden break in their relationship. So, what, do they bond simply because they both wear those bucket helmets? I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Ram Man, but I would have had an easier time swallowing a plot where he got into a fight with, I don't know, Stratos? And then there's Manny. Again, I talked about how he's one of the dumber looking heroes, but the thing that shocks me in this episode is how he actually does know how to disguise himself and even change his voice.
Yes, Skeletor.
Yet, Rammy didn't recognize him when he was just using his stock monster face? Are you shitting me? Like, Filmation could never really figure out, does Many-Faces fool people when he just changes his face, or if he really is a legit master of disguise? So the thing is, I just have a real hard time taking this episode seriously, even though almost all of Skeletor's best henchmen make an appearance in this episode, as they're the ones who made the Dark Mooners think the Bright Mooners were sabotaging their infrastructure. No, I didn't make that part up. I guess one funny highlight is that Beastman actually uses his animal control abilities to escape from Eternia'S Prison, which is kinda cool. Though they never explain how he got to the Dark Moon, unless that pterodactyl literally flew him out into space. It seems to me the writer Raubi Goren couldn't really make up his mind on whether to make this episode serious or silly. There's even this false moment of tension where Adam nearly transforms in front of Teela, thinking the Dark Mooners are gonna blow them to Kingdom Come.
By the... Look!
What? By the...
Yes. By the way, Teela, remind me to show you my great new jacket when we get back home.
So because of moments like this, the episode never manages to play quite as straight as I think it should have, which ends up turning this whole thing into a bit of an unfocused shit show. I mean, Goren's other episodes included Monster on the Mountain and The Greatest Show on Eternia, so I think his forte really were the more human and silly episodes. And which is why this episode, along with his other episode, The Energy Beast, often come off quite weak. So, do I recommend this episode? I mean, not unless you really needed to see Ramman and Manny giving each other a big man hug. Manny and Rammy, give me a man hug! Until next time, I have the power, so can you.